You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players. And all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Hello Arsenal Pass listeners, and welcome back to episode 227 of Arsenal Pass. Hayden Dale here with Pankaj, Bhojwani. This week on the pod, we are talking all things latest spoilers that we've had over the past 2 weekends across our callings in New Zealand and the US. Plus, we're going to open a gold foil, Pankaj. We got my gold foil from a couple of weeks ago from Auckland that we're going to open on the pod, see what we get there. And Pankaj, of course, you were at Kansas City calling this past weekend and World Tour Kansas City. So you're going to give us a bit of a recap on the event. That said, though, how was your week in Flesh and Blood, I guess, post that? Or, I mean, you could just go straight into your recap if you want.
Yeah, my week in Flesh and Blood was basically calling Kansas City. Also, I do have to commend you on your amazing discipline in not opening a gold foil yet, so that all our impressionable viewers can enjoy you opening it on the pod for them.
Degenerate opening of random gold foils.
Degenerate? Well, how is it degenerate?
Wow, it's not really, is it? But I guess, you know,
okay,
a little bit of a gamble.
It's... Yeah, a little bit of a gamble, but I mean, you got to do it for the content. I mean, viewership's going to spike. Yeah, definitely don't put the...
Do it for the people.
Yeah, don't... Exactly. And no forwarding to what the gold foil is, people. You got to stay for the entire episode. So Kansas City recap. Overall, I mean, I don't think it was a secret, but I didn't really prep for the event. And I didn't expect to do well, and I didn't. Someone at the call, it was really funny. Someone pointed out my PSYOP. Because they sat next to me and they saw that I was in Katsu and they were like, hey, you said on the pod you're going to be in Mario. And I was like, that is fair, like that you're calling me out on the PSYOP. But in my defense, and I assured them that I actually switched decks twice before ending up on Katsu because I was in an absolute spiral.
Yes.
So, you know, for anyone who's mad at me for not sticking to what is on the pod, don't worry. I switched decks twice.
I can back him up.
First.
I can back you up.
Yeah.
You were messaging me about it. I can back them up. Back you up.
Exactly. That night, I messaged Hayden. I was like, oh my god, dude, I lied on the pod. I'm actually going to play Slippy. And the next day, I messaged Hayden. I was like, you're going to hate me. I'm actually playing Katsu. Anyway, so my idea with the Katsu pick was basically just if I can get into the Gravy bracket. I had a feeling Gravy would be most represented. Like, I just need to be most represented, or at least even with Slippy. Just kind of the way US normally is. They really love the Illusionist and Board State type decks here. I also knew a lot of the players that were showing up were going to be on Gravy. I knew lots of players who normally wouldn't be on Gravy were actually still playing Gravy. Like, Hayden Jensen, for example. We've spoken about him before. Notable Yarrow player, like Guardian player. Mm-hmm. He told me he was going to be on Gravy like the day before. I was like, I just know there's lots of people who are going to be on that. So I want to play something that was going to Gravy, and I was like, if I can win early and get into like this Gravy bracket plus / decks that are there to beat Gravy, I feel like Katsu's a very strong pick. And overall, I'd say I'm still happy with my pick. I think it occupies a very similar meta position as Acilio. And we saw Acilio do very well, right? Because you're going to Gravy, you have draw sequences where you can beat the Slippies, which is going to be the second most represented, like almost certainly. And you're good into stuff that's like trying to beat Gravy as well. And I feel like Katsu's in the same position, except maybe your Slippy matchup is a little worse, but you're a lot better into the decks that are trying to beat the Gravy. Like, I think in an aggro race, if you're against another Ninja, for example, or even against Acilio, I'd rather be on Katsu than... like, Katsu and Acilio, in my opinion, is favored for the Katsu, for example. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's very much that same meta position, so... I don't regret picking Katsu. Had I prepped a little bit more, I think I would have tuned the list a bit better. Coming out of the weekend, there are a couple of cards in the list where I was like, ooh, I need to change these. Particularly, I was running Vengeance Never Rests. Yeah. And I was like, ooh, that's got to come out now. So calling didn't go so well. I did not win early. My round 1 was against an Ira, which I think normally is a fine matchup for Katsu, but I had no idea what was happening because this was a unique build of Ira. They were running the Armory Deck cards. So they were running the headpiece that lets you tutor Whirling Mist Blossom. Mm-hmm. And I never played that kind of Ira before. So they did that. They searched for Whirling Mist Blossom, and it was coming in for 3. And I was like, okay, I'm going to block 4. and then they go Razor Reflex. And I was like, I did not know I'm supposed to play around Razor Reflex.
Is coming.
And then, so the next 2 times they sent Whirling Mist Blossom for 3, I blocked 6 because I was like, oh, could have Razor Reflex. And it turns out they only had 1 Razor Reflex in the deck.
Blew you
so
out.
I was just, like, blocking 6 for nothing. Yeah, exactly. So basically, I was just like, I have no idea what's happening against this Ira. And part of me wonders, like, even if I was in Slippy, I'd probably still lose just because I didn't know what I'm supposed to play around or not. So that was a rough round 1. Round 2, I played against Kano. Dishonored them on my first real turn of the game. They went first, they started with Potion. And they sent Arcane at me, which is a mistake because I got to AB, and that drew me into the Dishonor line. And I dishonored them turn 1, and the game was basically over. Round after that, I believe I played Slippy. And I managed to get there. Just because, like I said, sometimes, Slippy sends vanilla damage. Like, they're like, here's Infiltrate, Kiss of Death, whatever. I do not care. And then I go, here's 30-something. Actually, no, this was even better. No, this wasn't vanilla. They sent a CNC at me, but I just had the natural combo. So I was like, okay, I'll take 6, lose my Ancestral Empowerment in my arsenal, and just, like, sent the whole thing at them. I didn't even need a Katsu trigger that turn. So I got the Katsu trigger, and I declined it, because I just had the natural thing.
Naturally.
Which, nice. Exactly. So it was the double bonds line with the links and everything. So then I'm super far ahead, and then Edge of Autumn kind of just bleeds them out.
How did they block that hand, by the way? Did they just throw the hand at the table, by the way?
Yeah, so they stopped my Surging, and they stopped my Descendant, and I just had the bonds afterwards naturally. So I was just like, okay. So, like, I think they blocked well. In a sense, they blocked well, given, you shouldn't be playing around, like, having the triple thing, but the thing is, if I did have the natural, then you always get Dishonored, because you've already blocked. So they did get Dishonored as well, that line, and continued on, so it was like, okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, like, why I like Katsu as a pick. I feel very favored into Gravy. And then into Slippy, you kind of just do sometimes get the hands where you just deal 30-something at them. And obviously it's not always draw triple, like the natural combo line, like 3 pieces of it, but you might have the Ancestral, and they didn't have the D-Reg to cover it up, and you still get a Katsu on it anyway, and after you just get to do the whole thing. Because Slippy, unlike something like New, isn't actually disrupting you every single turn of the game. There's plenty of turns where it's like Kiss of Death, Art of Desire, or Infiltrate, or whatever, right? Or Infect. Like Infiltrate, Infect, and I do not care about these things. So managed to get that against a Slippy. And then I played a Celio, which, like I said, I do feel like I'm favored into. And I think the way the game played out, I definitely was. I had them down to 2, and then they had their turn. And then I had a moment where they were sending their last attack. I knew it was last attack, no cards in hand. It was gone in a flash. I was at 11. And I was like, okay, I can take 4 and go to 7. And I feel like I'm pretty safe on 7. Like, a Celio can't really deal 7 on my turn. It's pretty tough for them. They did have a Channel Lightning Valley that would stay on the field. And I was like, maybe that messes up the math. I'm not sure. My other option was I could just give up my arm piece, the Okana Scarabs, and block 2 and stay at 9 and be super healthy. I made the call that since they were at 2, I really wanted my Scarabs to make all their blocks incredibly awkward, right? Because they won't block Edge of Autumn, and then afterwards they always do block an extra 1 because then Scarabs anything. And I was like, 7 still felt safe. Since they had already seen a 0-cost shock, and it was like turn 3 or 4, so it's not like we'd gone through too much of the deck. It's a fast matchup, obviously. It's Katsu, right? So I was like, hey, I went down to 7, and then I did my turn, and then they drew 2 0-cost shocks, and they managed to deal 7 on my turn. So I was just like, okay, I feel like that one was one of those moments where it's like I think I took a low-risk play, and looking back, I still think it was the correct play. It's just he needed the exact cards to deal 7 on my turn, which is quite a big ask for a Celio. It's not really something that happens very often. So at that point, I was the next 2. I played against a Florian afterwards. I'm firmly in like the 2-2 bracket, but I actually beat the Florian because
That's
Remembrance is very good. Remembrance is very good. Basically, I did a double bonds turn, dealt a bunch of damage. Remembrance back 2 bonds into my deck, and then did another double bonds turn, and then they die. So beat the Florian, and then I played Gravy. It was funny. I feel like I was winning against the matchups I was unfavored into, but losing against the matchups I was favored into. So I lost against the Acilio. And then I played against the Gravy, got really far ahead. And this is one of those games where I feel like this comes down a lot to just not having enough practice. I was really far ahead, but I think what happened is I started respecting allies a little bit too much, even though I was so far ahead, and I should have just continued sending face. And then I ended up sort of just getting outvalued because I can't block their hook, right? So they're always getting gold every turn.
So if you let the game go too long, losing that, they'll just
yeah, exactly. I put them low really quickly, but then afterwards I was getting outvalued, and that's one of those games I wish it was recorded because I would love to go back and just look at the different decisions I could have made. I think it was my game to lose, and I did lose it. My opponent also played fantastically. It was an amazing Gravy pilot. They played very, very well. So then now I'm X3, and then so that was the end of my calling run. The next day, Hayden, I decided to follow your advice. I was just thinking about it. I was like, while I didn't regret my Katsu pick, I was like, I can't show up here being like, okay, I lost both days on Katsu. So I was like, fine, I'm going to listen to Hayden. I'll play Slippy, day 2, all right? Just do his play the best deck thing. Play Slippy. I have to say, when I got my second loss on the Battle Hardened, and that meant I'm just going to drop and not play anymore, I was kind of glad because I was miserable playing that deck. I was not happy. One of the games, it was like round 3, I won against the Dash.io opponent. We had like 30 minutes left on the clock. He was like, oh, do you want to go another one since we have more time on the clock? I was like, I'm really not enjoying this right now, so I'm sorry, I'm going to decline. I just went to go catch up with how everyone else is doing.
That matchup is also not very interesting at all. It's pretty free. I don't know.
It didn't. It feels like one of those matchups where stuff has to go really correct for the Dash.io for them to get there. But on an average game, even a below average Slippy game, you're still going to be fine. But after my 2-2 drop, I went to go get barbecue because apparently that's what you're supposed to do in the South. So I'm going to go get barbecue with Yuki, Peter, and Jordan, who's one of my locals. And that was really fun. That was a good time.
Nice.
That was my weekend. Overall, I would say, looking back, coming back to our discussions earlier about whether you're a player that needs to play what you enjoy versus play just the best deck. At least for me, this past weekend, neither of that mattered. It was just that you have to prep for your event. If you don't prep for the event, you're not going to have a good time. So I would say that's like my main takeaway from that event. Just
that's fair.
You got to prep.
Yeah, you said you followed my advice, but actually you followed one piece of my advice, because if you remember back to the podcast, a big piece of the advice was don't swap decks last minute, and it was play the best deck, but actually more than that, it was test the best deck and prepare with the best deck, invest your time in the best deck. So hey, you hear what you want to hear, Pankaj. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, that one, I didn't follow either of our advice for
you ignored both of us. You're like,
I ignored the most important part.
But you know what? I think, like you say, fair enough in terms of you've got to, especially personally, right? Enjoy what you're playing, and if you're not particularly enjoying it, that's What did you lose to a Slippy, by the way? I'm curious on the Battle Hardened Sunday.
I lost to a Gravy, where kind of got gravied. It was like turn 2, they go chart into back alley break line. The next turn was called to grave to shuffle the deck, and a turn after I was swell into another back alley break line. I think it might have been the same one that they shuffled.
Yeah, probably.
So, yeah, like twice in 4 turns, getting the extra action point is pretty hard to come back from, I think. So lost that one, and then the other loss was, I don't actually remember what the other loss was.
Blanked it out of his mind. That's fair. That's all right.
Yeah. Something. Oh, it was Marinette. Yeah. It was actually Jude Cornett. Portland, like very strong player from Portland. He was in Marinette. And I lost that one.
Yep. Okay. Fair enough. I've actually only played a couple of games against Marinette so far as Slippy.
It's not as miserable for Slippy as I thought.
I haven't lost
which is actually why I pivoted. Which is why I pivoted off Marinette, actually. I thought it would be miserable for Slippy, but it isn't. So it's like Slippy still gets to play the game, and die roll also matters like quite a bit. Yeah. But like that game, I feel like the game ended, it was a pretty tight game. And I was like, if I got to go second, it could have been a different outcome. So like the fact that die roll still matters as much as it does means that it's not as favored for Mario as one would hope. So I was like, not entirely sure about Mario, which is why I pivoted off of it. Went to Slippy, and then decided I don't want to play a bunch of Slippy mirrors, all Slippy into Gravy for that matter, and then just landed on Katsu.
I think the challenge for Marinette right now as well is I think the lists that you need to play to be good into Gravy just aren't good against, like, you're giving up a lot of percentage points against Slippy, I think, with like the dagger package and stuff like that. Whereas obviously the more stealth cards you play, the more sort of traditional assassin attack reaction lines you play, the better you are in Slippy, but then the worse you are into Gravy. So I think it's a really tough, and you spoke about it being, the 2-deck format, the 2 best decks in the format. I think it's really tough to be in that position as Marinette, unfortunately. But then you've still also got to deal at a calling level with a lot of other things floating around. So
Speaking speaking of other things, I mean, Acilio did well this past weekend, which I think makes sense. Like I said, I think it's a very similar position as like Akatsu, for example, where you are good into Gravy, you have good draws in the Slippy where you can win, and then you're kind of also just decent to like in the race and everything like that.
Yeah, you just
but I want to shout out. I want to shout out Fang. Oh my God, Guy Cohen going undefeated on Fang in the Swiss. No, I think he lost one round the Swiss, and then showing up. I believe he was first seed. Fang seems very interesting as well, and a hero that I think I might want to sink a little bit of time into. Although I do wonder how it might be a little bit too precise, where it's good into Gravy and Slippy, but I don't think Fang's winning races. Like when other decks are trying to race Gravy, you're not really winning races as Fang, and if Verdance is still around, if someone brings up Verdance as well, that's also really bad for you. So it feels very, very targeted for like the top two. Yeah. And I guess Ira as well, which for a lot of, I mean, I think Ira was third most represented as well. So you're really good into top three. But if you play something out of that, I think it's a bit rough. And we sort of saw, like, I think Guy's losses were to Acilio in the Swiss, and then Acilio again in the top 8. And I think that kind of just goes to show. When you play something else that's out of the top 3, it's like, Fang's a bit rough. But if you can just play into the top 3, you're chilling.
Which you're going to do a lot of the time, right? Especially if you're continuing to win. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Exactly. You do need to win the early rounds, though, which is what I wanted to do, but unfortunately didn't quite happen.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, I have a feeling Verdance is going to see more play very soon. We'll talk about that as we get into the main topic and go through some previews and spoiler cards we've seen over the last 2 weeks through events, through World Tour Weekly, all these things. I did not do a lot this week in Flesh and Blood, which was kind of nice off the back of calling Auckland, watch some Kansas City coverage. That's kind of been it. But maybe we can just dive straight into the news, Pankaj, after your recap.
Let's do it. So we have a preview card for Super Slam. This will be coming out on Monday, September 8th. So be tuned in for that. We're not fully sure what we're doing yet, but you'll see it come on Monday, September 8th. Next, Calling Kansas happened this past week, and congrats to Evan Herndon for taking it down in a Gravy Mirror Finals. Once again, just saying, this hero should be at 320 points if it went for the 0.5 multiplier. Anyway, I have to shout out Jacob Clements for going on an absolute tear this entire year, it feels like. To the point where he might actually be dethroning Brody as Player of the Year, which feels like an absolutely insane sentence to say. But he's sort of creeping up. And depending on how the next few events, and especially Worlds, shake out, we might suddenly see Jacob Clements overtake Brody, which would be absolutely wild. But after shot, I mean, he got second this past weekend at Calling Kansas. He got second at the Auckland Calling.
Yep.
Exactly, the week before. So he's absolutely just killing it right now. I'll have to shout him out for that.
Yeah, and Worlds, Worlds is a big lot of points in the World Tour race. So, I think we're gonna have a showdown at the World Championship, which is really cool, right? In terms of a couple of regions champions vying for the title. There'll be some really close things there. There's obviously still some callings to go before we get to Worlds. So Montreal's coming out very soon. I'm sure both Brody and Jacob will be there. So as well as other players who are vying for different regions, points hauls as well. So yeah, it's going to be very close. As you look around the regions, there's a couple of regions that are particularly close. Maybe not so much Brody and Jacob's two regions, but in Asia, it's very close. For instance, between Pudding Tam, Nick Butcher. I just want to again shout out Evan because. First of all, he's my boy. I love Evan. Obviously part of the team PCG Invasion team as well. And Evan is someone that I always enjoy speaking to about Flesh and Blood. He's always got great insight. He's always thinking about the game, thinking about what next. So Evan picked up Gravy sort of the week of Singapore for Pro Tour. Played it in the calling to, I believe, like a top 16 or at least a cash finish in Singapore as well. We're both kind of battling out on day 2, sort of catching up, seeing how each other were going, and has just put the time and reps into Gravy since then. Worked on the list, I think, has developed, I think, with Tarak Patel and a few others as well, like a list that was very, very good in the mirror as well. And, I think proved that, obviously, finals, but also beating Michael Hamilton in a Gravy mirror for top 8 as well, winning in for top 8. So, I think Evan and the team as well ended up on this great list. I think not saying others weren't playing Scuba at all, but I think they've really brought Scuba to the forefront. It was a card that's been in their list for a very long time. Last ditch effort, things like this as well, in terms of what they're doing. And in mirror matches and stuff. So yeah, I think it was really cool to obviously see Evan take a win after being the US national champion 2 years ago, and now coming in and grabbing a calling win. And I think Evan is just one of the sort of brightest young stars in this game as well.
I think the list is super teched for this meta, which it should be. I think something that was happening was everyone else was saying Gravy and Slippy at the top of the meta, and we need tech for these two decks.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't feel like a lot of Gravies were teching for the mirror. And I think that's kind of exactly what Evan did, and really paid off for him. He was telling me about his match against Hamilton as well, where I think someone was telling me about that match, and they were saying like the Hamilton list seemed kind of miserable against this triple scuba, triple seafloor salvage list, because it's just you just can't resolve your allies. You just keep getting bottomed. Either they get turned face down to seafloor salvage, or just get bottomed by the scuba. So yeah, it feels like one of those things where everyone else was teching for Gravy and Slippy, but the Gravies were maybe teching for everything else and not so much for each other. And we see Evan sort of really, in a sense, abuse that, where he had the most tagged Gravy list for the mirror.
It's also so cool when you see, this happened in Singapore a couple of times as well, but just seeing the team get to like their end game, draw 5 or 6, 7, 8 cards off gold, and then just like double or triple last ditch effort people, and people are like, what just happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very cool interaction and very cool innovation as well.
For sure. Definitely don't try to fatigue a good Gravy opponent. It's not happening. It's kind of like trying to fatigue a good chain opponent. It's like once they know what you're up to, it's just stop. Still, last part of the news, Calling Copenhagen is this weekend. I'm definitely going to be tuned in. Going to be really, really excited for that. I want to say I saw an announcement for it. I believe it's Scott Mines and Simon Nielsen casting it, which is going to be freaking awesome. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Should we get on to the Command and Cookout, Pankaj?
Let's do it. So I got a handwritten note at Calling Kansas. So thank you for that. For the Command and Cookout, this was by Hayden. Given to me by Hayden. Is given to me on a paper note. So thanks for that. But also, next time, thanks for putting your name on the note. But next time, please put your full name, because all I know is Hayden. It's like, it's a bit... Don't fully know which Hayden. It's not free floating Hayden. It's a different Hayden. Anyway, so the question is, Hayden and Pankaj, what do you think Levia needs to be tier 1 or 1.5? One more blue 6? Question mark. Hayden, I know you have lots of thoughts on Levia, so why don't you start?
Well, I think the one more blue 6 is a brute a brute joke from a very long time, right? Of we just need one more 6, especially for Rhinar players, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the main topic as well. About we just need one more blue for this hero to be, to finally ascend to what it should be, etc., etc. I think in the case of Levia, would one more blue 6 attack help? Yeah, for sure, especially for block 3. That would be, give me what's the I guess a shadow version of Wreck-A-Romp, for instance, to go alongside with your other blue, your shadow blue 6, etc. I don't think that's what will tip Levia over the edge to being tier 1 or even 1.5. I've been very outspoken on what I think about Levia and the problems with this hero, and I spent for those that may not know, I played a lot of Levia during Monarch and Tales of Aria, actually trying to make this hero work. I thought at times I thought I found ways to even beat chain and things like this, and then what I quickly realized is that when players learn how to play against Levia and adapt and force you into certain situations, that I think this hero just fundamentally doesn't work in terms of the problem is with the hero itself and the hero ability. And I don't think so obviously they printed the demi hero to try and overcome that. I think LSS see the exact same challenges that many of us had for Levia for a very long time. The demi hero does do, some percentage of fixing those games where you just die to your hero ability, but not all of them, and not, to be honest, not a significant amount of it once people start to adapt and learn. And also, you're forced to play Levia in very particular ways because of that, and then your opponent is almost forced to, if they play correctly, to play in very particular ways as well. And I just think it's not interesting, first of all. But I just don't think you can really fix it. I just don't think you can. But you can go deeper down the rabbit hole of trying to plug the gaps to try and... I think Brian Gottlieb spoke on our podcast a few years ago about leaning into the variance of a hero like Levia, leaning into a lower floor but a higher ceiling. And I think they can continue to do that with some cards. I think it might be hard to balance and it might be difficult to find the knife edge of something that's so powerful but falls apart, and as opposed to something that's just becomes too consistent. I think that's something they've got to be really careful with Elvira, is to not make it too consistent, because the power is definitely there. I think if they wanted to do that, to try and find that knife's edge of a bit more consistency to try and, address the hero ability problem, I think a weapon might be one of the safest ways to do it, because they can easily control that, test for it, work out what that looks like. Maybe it's an upgraded version of Meat Axe, for instance, or something. I mean, a Meat Axe with Go Again would be very, very powerful, for instance. Probably too powerful, but, something along those lines. Or I think one of the most interesting things about Leviathan personally is something like the Howl from Beyond loop. You can loop the non-attack action, play it multiple times, get it back, etc. I think that is something that they could potentially look at doing, as something akin to that, maybe in action form, like attack action form, or another non-attack action that might have some effect that they could sort of go down the route of. You can play Leviathan a little bit slower, you can try and cultivate it, you can try and then almost like combo off at a time by putting stuff into your banish zone, but until then you sort of play a bit more safe. So yeah, I think that's probably where I'm at with Leviathan. I think it's very hard to quote unquote fix this or make this hero tier 1.5 or tier 1, and it definitely isn't one more blue 6, unfortunately, Hayden.
Mm-hmm. I agree with, I totally agree with what you said. I just have phrased it a little bit differently, I think. So all from
go for it.
My different phrasing of it, essentially, which I think what's keeping her from being tier 1.5 is the floor. Like, she has an insanely high ceiling, to the point where it actually feels very unfair when she is hitting that ceiling. Mm-hmm. When she's going Blood Rush Bellows, when she's going Shadow Realm Horrors, and like hitting 3/6s and then just smashing you with this insane card advantage. And also, it's impossible for you to pivot into it because they have Husk and Fleshbag. It just sort of feels like once she starts putting you in the blender, to your point, what you were saying, that you're forced to play a very specific way into her, is that you're supposed to actually just block her out and hope that she stumbles on herself, because there's nothing you can do to overcome that fridge. There's no pivot you can do. Nu a little bit could, because she had like stupid stuff like Siren's Call. Maybe Iyslander could a little bit, because she could disrupt through armor in a sense. But for a lot of decks, it's just out of the question to try and come back into the game once you fall behind against Leviathan. So you're forced to just make her trip over herself. And then that floor is kind of the problem, right? Because the Leviathan will be like above 20. It will still be in a 20s life total, maybe even lower 30s. And then they stumble. And then the fact that you have this demi-hero doesn't actually help you.
Yeah.
You still just lose like a whole bunch of life to your Blood Dead. You didn't get to convert your hand, whatever. So I think to actually push her up to tier 1, I think you phrased it as improve her consistency. I'll just phrase it as raise the floor, so that when that happens, you have a way out. So I imagine some sort of onboard way to maybe turn off Blood Dead once a game or something. They'll like increase the floor. But so this will push her to tier 1, but this will also absolutely break her. So I'm not suggesting this actually be something that they do. I'm sort of with you on that point, Hayden, where it's like, I'm not sure whether this can be fixed, because if it is fixed, if the floor is fixed, then she's absolutely just tier S and just kind of broken, right? If you kind of raise her floor so that she doesn't have this drawback that she stumbles over herself, because the ceiling is so high that it feels like she needs that floor as a bit of a balance thing. So definitely with you. I don't think 1 blue 6 fixes the issue, because that's kind of not where the floor is. Maybe let's do more wild ride stuff, but it still doesn't solve the problem of like the Blood Dead mechanic. So yeah, I'd say it's a Blood Dead part of it. If you fix that, she probably breaks the game. So maybe don't fix that. I don't know. Maybe she's just permanently relegated to being tier 2.
That's what I mean. I think you just can't. Like, the hero's just fundamentally doesn't work. Like, that's kind of what I've been saying for years. It's just you can't solve it. And I think that other challenges is what it does is it also limits being able to print another Shadow Brute hero, because the cards are so good. So it's like, I don't know, it's a really tough situation to be in. I think if they're going to print additional cards to Leviathan at this stage, they probably have to be specializations. We can get onto specializations again when we get into the the main topic of the pod. But I think, it's just really difficult. I'm not convinced that they can put. So I think Leviathan is actually in times playable as well. I personally think it's unplayable, but I think there's times where you could be like, oh, I think, I'm a brute player and I want to play Leviathan because it stacks up better than other brute heroes. I think that is a real thing. What I think they could address potentially is that to your point, like a once per game sort of effect or something might raise the floor enough that it actually becomes correct for the opponents not to just switch to blocking out to try and make you stumble in certain game states, because that is something that happens a lot where it's just correct. It's just strictly correct to block your opponent or try and mess with their demi-hero interaction timing in terms of with Blood Debt to win the game and to just like close the game out very quickly, or like immediately be like, yep, you missed that, now I win the game because of the, like you said, the value you lost or the fact that you just took 9 damage or whatever it might be, right? Or you literally died to your Blood Debt because I was just forced to be like, right, block, 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 block. Oh, you bricked. Okay, you lose now, sort of thing. So maybe this sort of once per game effect where you can set something up, or a pitch effect that, you know, like if you've pitched this card this turn, ignore Blood Debt or something, right? Like legendary, like Fable kind of like thing. I think something like that could help. I mean, that one might actually just be completely broken because you could get to in-game stacks with that. But yeah, I think to your point, just raising the floor a little bit might make Levia in some way playable.
Yeah, the problem with that kind of thing though, like for one turn, like ignore your drawback or whatever, is that it feels like the opponent just has no way out, is the thing.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Between Karen Husk and Scalding Flashback, it's so hard to actually pivot back into a Levia.
It has to be chest or head. It has to be chest or head, by the way. Yeah, the effect has to be on equipment that's either chest or head.
Exactly. So that the opponent at least has the option to pivot into you. Because currently it's just like I'm against a Levia and they had they started strong, and I was like, okay, I'm 10 life behind. I also can't take damage to make a pivot because then I'll be 20 life behind and you still have all your armor. So I'm like, okay, cool. I just have to block you out and hope you die to yourself, which isn't very fun.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thanks, Aiden, for the question. And like Pankaj says, getting us some paper questions, writing your name down, making the questions, readable. These are all fantastic things. If you want to include your last name in the future, like Pankaj calls out, or maybe you want to include like a handle, gamer tag, whatever it is. Maybe you also are on social media platforms and you want to shout yourself out. Feel free to do that. That's fine. If you want to get your questions in for the Commander Cookout, though, and it's not going to be in person, then you can email us at arsenalpassfab@gmail.com. You can drop them in the YouTube comments below. Let us know it is a question for the Commander Cookout. You can even jump on Spotify and leave a comment there or a question for the Commander Cookout. If you're an Arsenal Pass Patreon subscriber, then you can jump into the Patreon Discord and drop your question in the channel there. Get your questions in. With that said, Pankaj, why don't we get on to the main topic of the pod? I'm going to open a gold foil at some point, but first of all, we're going to talk about some of these recent spoilers and preview cards. We've seen a few over the course of World Tour Weekly with one Mr. Martin Bay. We've also seen, of course, over the last 2 weeks, with particularly Calling Auckland, we had a few cards previewed as well. So we're going to talk about some of these, and I think you've got one that you're pretty excited to kind of kick off and start
I've got
with.
two.
Okay,
I've
well,
got two
you only get to start with
Saturday.
one because you can't start with both, unfortunately. So you have to choose which one's your favorite.
I was actually thinking we start with yours, the one that's most relevant to you and the hero that you are currently playing.
Oh, I thought you were talking Alpha Instinct because of the question we just had. But
no, I'm talking about the Slippy card.
Sure.
Which I guess technically could be a Marinette card as well. But let's go ahead and start with Meat Madness, which I believe is in a Slippy Armory deck, I want to say.
It is.
This is a 0-cost Chaos Assassin action attack. Attacks for 3, blocks for 3, has stealth, standard stealth templating at this point. And it says, when this hits a hero, choose one at random. They choose a card in their hand, banish it. They choose a card in their arsenal, banish it. Banish the top card of their deck. So, chaos theme over here with a random effect that you don't really know what's going to happen until it actually happens. And it seems like 1/3 of the time you're guaranteed to disrupt them because they choose a card in the hand and you banish it. 2/3 of, if they have an arsenal, then it's 2/3 of the time, and then there is the 1/3 of the time where it actually just banishes the top card of the deck. What are your thoughts on this as a Slippy aficionado?
Yeah, I mean, interesting to see the Slippy Armory Deck come out. I think first of all, just with the Armory Deck, it makes a lot of sense in terms of Slippy is a hero that players can grow into. I think at the base level, go again on the select on the hero, just swing your attacks. Just do all the attacking, but also a lot of things defend for 3, so you can learn how to sort of trade value of hands, and then you start to learn things like, combinations of cards, best use of arsenal, second cycle, all these things. So I actually think Slippy is probably the best. I really like the idea of putting Slippy into an Armory deck because I think even if they were to hit something from Slippy soon, or it becomes, its meta position becomes less viable because obviously it can be quite delicate sometimes with that hero ability, I think. For instance, if other assassins, if Marionette gets to go back to playing how it was and it becomes a big force in the metagame because of bans to Gravy, maybe they hit something else, etc. I do think it's just a very good entry-level Armory deck for people to pick up and adapt to and start to play. This card's very interesting. Sorry, I just wanted to get that out of the way because I just thought when they showed this, I thought that's actually a great way to take it. Obviously, seeing our first kind of Chaos Assassin attack action, also very, very cool. Love the border on this card, by the way, first of all. I think it's interesting. The fact that this has, of course, it's stealth attack at its base, which is the minimum requirement for making it into Slippy is, you need to have this 0 for 3 stealth attack. You're competing against cards like Infect, you're competing against cards like Infiltrate probably, unless the Slippies want to go in the direction of playing more of these red stealth cards, being more of that sort of red line aggressive deck, so maybe they start cutting some of the blues out, maybe the deck changes slightly. I know that, for instance, I'm not a big fan of Save of Bloodshed, maybe that card goes away, you have some room for some more red stealth cards. This one, I'm not sure, honestly. I was trying to work this out. It's like, okay, so you have the 3 abilities. The banish the top card of the deck, to your point, is not disruption. In Slippy in general, it just isn't going to have a relevant effect most of the time. Of that banish is just not going to do anything other than potentially get an important card out of the deck or get them lower on deck total for potential fatigue implications. Arsenal sometimes as well, they're just not going to care about it, right? They're just like, you hit them and like, well, I just don't have an Arsenal and I don't have, I don't care about the top card of my deck. So 1/3 of the time, you're going to disrupt me and do a Mark of the Black Widow sort of thing. But effectively, that's what it is, right? It's Mark of the Black Widow that you get to do on the top effect. So that's the most important thing, is that 1/3 of the time, without marking them, you get to do Mark of the Black Widow. And sometimes the Arsenal is going to potentially be irrelevant on hit. I think where this card is interesting is if you include more stealth cards, I think this becomes more interesting. If you find ways to feel really comfortable playing 3 Spike with Blood Rot, for instance, as well, so more pump effects, I think this card is, again, more interesting. I think otherwise it's really competing against cards like Infiltrate and Infect, and if you want more disruption as opposed to just damage, then this card, I could see this card being played over Infiltrate, I think, and that's probably where it's at right now. I think this is going to be, I don't think this is like straight auto-include. I think this is a potential, for the right reasons, include, and it's going to be competing with, depending on the meta, slots in the deck for other 0 for 3 stealth cards, I think.
I could see it maybe before Infiltrate actually coming over Art of Desire Body.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Potentially.
Yes, it's meta dependent.
It's in that same vein where Infiltrate is good right now, like particularly good right now, because there's a lot of other Slippies going around. And also a lot of, like at least before Ira came about, like Syndra was like the go-to ninja for a lot of people, and Infiltrate's just an extra 0 for 3 basically when it hits most of the time. Also, enough people are running D-Reacts that enough of the time it hits a D-React. Our Desire Body is a little bit more dubious. Our Desire Body is honestly a bit similar to this, where it's some percentage of the time it does something.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what Meat Madness is as well, where some percentage of the time it does something, except when this thing does something, it's a little bit more disruptive, and that one is more like you draw a card and gain a life. Yeah. I don't see this being super transformative for the deck. I could see it being a slight upgrade potentially over
it definitely is.
Our Desire.
I think it definitely is.
Yeah, well, my main thing is, man, this is going to be annoying to block, basically.
Yeah.
I feel like what's going to... Actually, no, it's not going to be annoying to block. I think what's going to happen is a lot of times the opponent is going to be like, okay, just take the risk and see what happens and hope that you miss it, sort of thing. So yeah, it seems like a fine minor upgrade for the deck, I'd say.
What I also think as well is that you could see Slippies in the future go back to, for instance, like a blue pump could be an option, I think, in Slippy's future. I think this is where cards, like, if people need to defend a card like this. So basically, I think if you need to defend the red stealth cards, then cards like Shred become more interesting again, whereas I think Shred has not been in a particularly good spot because people are just like, well, I'm not going to block Infiltrate, I'm not going to block your Art of Desire Body, whatever. I'm only blocking... And sometimes I'm not even going to block bonds, right? Because I just can't do anything about it, for instance, things like that. So I think if you're going back to a potential place where like Shred and stuff are more interesting, then also because of these on-hit effects, I think this could help with that. So I don't know. There's so many different ways I think Slippy could go in these next few metas. The hero is actually quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Should we go? Should we go to
a different spoiler?
Yeah, let's go to your top card here that you've got. Let's talk Blood Follows Blade. Do you want to read it out and I'll bring it up on the screen for our viewers?
Cool. Blood Follows Blade. This was actually spoiled a few weeks ago, but we were busy talking about other things in the pod to actually come to this card. This is a yellow 0-cost warrior attack reaction that blocks for 3. It is a Kassai specialization, and it says target sword attack gets go again, and when this hits, create a Centauri sellsword token. I'm super excited for this card. I do enjoy playing Kassai. It's probably it was my go-to hero like after Icelander, but before New, because I was a hero I was like most drawn to. I think the biggest thing for me with this card is that now the decision to block the first sword is very difficult. Normally, you kind of just don't block the first sword because usually it's coming in for 2, and then the bigger sword attack's going to be the second one because that gets like the Blade Runner buff, for example. And also you don't want to get blown out by Glint the Quicksilver because you block the first sword, then they can glint it, draw a card, and now this next sword attack is free as well, so they even get an extra resource, etc. But now with this card, you kind of you're just for it. You're like, do you play around Glint the Quicksilver or do you play around Blood Follows Blade? So it does feel like if people want to, it's going to punish decks that don't have defense reactions, that don't get to see what your reaction is to give the go again before they decide to block. If they're that sort of aggro, very aggressive leaning deck, or if they don't have the D-react, then this sort of card really punishes it. I'm quite excited. Also, important to note, it says when this hits, which means you can get the on-hit when you hit an ally as well.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool.
Very important. I think I was about to say, if you didn't say that, I think it's one of the most important things to call out. That it's just straight up on hit. Did you speak about this also just being... sorry, did you say this is just a yellow, which is also just insane?
Yeah, it's a yellow 0-cost, which is awesome because
obviously hero ability.
Yellows like
it's just hard to play enough of them.
Well, there's so many things about the yellow 0-cost here, which is a 0-cost go again enabler. It has double value in the sense that Kassai needs to run a lot of yellows. So when you have a 0-cost go again, like say Unsheath even, or Blood Follows Blade, it means your yellows can now be effective pitches as well. Because that was a problem with Kassai for a long time, where you need to add these yellows in your deck, but like Yellow Blade Runner still requires you to have a blue to fuel your turn efficiently.
Yeah, you brick up your hands all the time.
Exactly, because you'll draw like a yellow resource card, and that isn't enough because a lot of your go against are 1-cost and your swords cost 1 each. And even if you pitch a yellow into gold, you still need to pitch another whole card for the 1-cost go again, which is a big problem. But with cards like Unsheath and cards like Blood Follows Blade, and even to some extent Sharpened Senses, which are these 0-cost like go agains, where Sharpened Senses, and you pair with something else, let's say you pair with an Outland Skirmish or something, you now have this yellow 0-cost go again, which means your yellows can actually be resource cards, which is really, really big. Now, there is a slight weirdness with Blood Follows Blade, where the optimal resource curve is still you pitch a blue for this, because you want the 1 extra resource to swing the sellsword that it creates. But at least in a pinch, your turn isn't just fully inefficient if you didn't have a blue resource card with this. So that's massive, on top of Kassai caring about yellows for hero ability.
Yeah. No, I think this card's very good. I'm very excited for it. I'm not necessarily a big Kassai player myself, but some of my friends definitely are, and I did pick up most of the Kassai cards for the potential to play some Kassai. So yeah,
very nice. Well, we brought you over to the assassin side, so maybe we can get you over to the warrior side.
Dude, I play.
They are kind of like assassins, except worse in every single way. So
tell that to Arachne Solitary or whatever the Arachne. I can't remember the original Huntsman. Yeah. I was trying to get you to just take the bait on that one.
Speaking of take the bait, let's move on to take the bait. It's just a 0-cost ranger action that blocks for 3. It's red, and it's a Riptide specialization. It says, search your deck for a card, then shuffle and put it on top. Create a bait token under an opponent's control. Go again. And a bait token, I did not actually...
It's fine.
Pull that up beforehand.
I will bring up the bait token. So I'll read bait token. Cool. So bait token is you can't play, or it's a ranger token aura. You can't play or activate cards you own. Action: destroy this when the chain link resolves. Attack: once per turn, attack reaction 0. This gets +1 and go again. So you give the opponent the bait token. They can obviously can't play anything. They have to attack with the bait token or do nothing else. They attack with the bait token. They can then obviously give it go again. so that then it breaks, you can do everything else, but obviously it turns on every single trap in Riptide's potential deck that they're playing into you.
Yeah. I think this card's kind of bad. I think this card itself is bait. This is bait. The card itself is a bait. Riptide's the one taking the bait when they put this card. Unless I'm absolutely missing something, which obviously could be. But I'm just not entirely sure what it's fixing. Because are you actually going to use whole cards to stop your opponent's bait token to like deal damage to them or whatever? And like against who is that relevant, right? Obviously against aggro, you don't need this. They're attacking with go again and everything anyway. And most aggro decks have some sort of pumps. Even the ninjas have like their attacks are like greater power than the base. There are a bunch of cards that do that for them. So two of it, those traps already online. Even the ninjas these days do a bunch of attack reactions, like Syndra's flicking every turn of the game. So it's like, so against aggro, it feels like you don't really need stuff that forces your opponents to play into your traps. And then into something that's trying to fatigue you. I mean, if their full game plan is actually to fatigue, well, they just won't activate the attack reaction, right? And pass it over to you, and then you're like holding traps still. Like I'm just not entirely sure what this does. And and even they are trying to fatigue you, and they activate the attack reaction. You're using a bunch of block 3s to stop this card that you gave them. Aren't you like fatiguing yourself? I'm so lost with this card.
Yeah, I think this card is more of a it's in the Riptide Armory deck, right? I think it is. Is that where this card's coming from? No,
Wait,
this is a supplemental card.
I don't. No, I think it's a
sorry, it's a supplemental.
Yeah,
I was like, we can. Yeah, no,
I don't think Riptide's getting Armory Deck.
Yeah. Well, I was like, oh, maybe it's like kind of a signpost card to help people with like learning to play traps and stuff like that. I agree with you. I'm not sure what this card's up to. If you know, let us know in the comments what you think of Take the Bait, and maybe we took the bait and we got it wrong. So maybe you have to let us know.
Yeah. I guess like in the end game or something, I don't know. I would say the part that I think is the most interesting is that you play this. It has go again. So you play this and then they cannot use a defense reaction for the rest of the turn.
That is very true. Yep, that is very true. And potentially very good,
the rest
right?
of your turn. So,
as opposed to playing. Yeah, I think that is, yeah. I think I see.
And it does tutor. It does tutor a card, which is that's a powerful effect.
Yeah. Like, doesn't have to be a trap, right? Search anything, put it on top.
It's search for any card. Yeah. Put it on top.
So I don't know. I can see this card seeing some play potentially for reasons, but I'm not sure that it's like what's it solving is your question, right? And I think we're talking the Command and Cookout question about specializations, and I said I'd speak more about specializations later on, and here it is. You get to this point where they're trying to push a hero to a certain extent that you just print more and more of these specializations because you can't print powerful cards that aren't the specialization because otherwise you push other potential. Like Ranger is such a space they want to explore, right? And so you got to be really careful about it. It's not like Shadow Brute where it's a bit more specific and you can maybe get away with a few things. So they've got to be very careful about what they print for Riptide. So they specializations. The Jokers at one point will get to Riptide just being a deck full of specializations. Will it be playable at that point? Yeah.
So there is one interesting play pattern with Take the Bait where your 2-card hand, you go Take the Bait into Plan for the Worst, which Plan for the Worst will destroy everything that they're holding at the end of their turn. And it is destroy, I believe. So it's not just like shuffle into the deck. So you force them to activate the bait, like to actually do the attack reaction on the bait. Otherwise, they're going to lose 5 cards, like 4 in the hand, 1 in the arsenal, or 4 to 5 cards, which sort of means you can fatigue them if they're trying to take a fatigue angle.
Not good, though.
So I think that specific combination is like maybe fine. I don't know. I'm kind of grasping at straws here, as you can surely tell.
I'm off it.
I don't know. Plan for the Worst is a good card though. I think that's a solid card, but that came out a while back. Yeah.
Let's talk about a couple of other cards before we end on a pretty big one, I think. Let's talk about this equipment we saw, because, Pankaj, I have a question for you. Is this Olympia's time? We got a full 4 slots used up for warrior equipment. This is just normal warrior equipment, head, chest, legs, arms, all the golden equipment. You've got I'm showing the golden Galea, which is, they all say the same thing, so I'll read them out, but they're just different head slots. Warrior equipment, this one's the head, defends for 2, has temper, and this counts as gold, and it is a legendary Olympia specialization. Is this what Olympia's been waiting for, Pankaj? A full, what is that? It's a full 12 fridge, plus, it counts as gold.
Wait, how'd you get 12? I got 8.
Right. As temper,
sorry, the temp. Oh, got it. So I got 8 because you're not gonna block with it the second time.
8 and then use it, or 12 if you need to have the full fridge.
Yeah, I guess you could. I mean, you probably will have some gold tokens lying around, so maybe each of those, like, unless you block an extra one, because you can replace, you have the gold to pay for it anyway. I'm going to sound like such a Debbie Downer, especially after coming out of the take debate, since this is one we're discussing right after. Okay, so the play pattern, right? You block 8 with your full fridge, and then you use the other specialization, Visit the Golden Anvil, to replace all the pieces you just blocked with real equipment. So, his headpiece, I forgot what it's called, Prized Galea, I think. His headpiece and a real chest piece could be grains, could be tunic, I guess. Brave Forge braces and maybe dynamo if you're doing a dual wielding thing or something else. So essentially, you turn your golden anvil into a block 8, because you get a block where 8 do this thing, and then that thing replaces everything. Block 8, but it does use an action point because it doesn't have go again. And I think one thing that's being underrated a little bit when people are looking at this card, and that needs to be accounted for when you're thinking about just the sheer value, it does cost you 4 sideboard slots. That is a lot of sideboard slots. That's not like that. That's a very significant amount of sideboard slots. So 4 sideboard slots, 1 action point during the game to get 8 points of value. I'm just not sure of the maths. Like, I guess it's good, but the rest of the shell is still the rest of the shell. So it's like, okay, once a game you get maybe a little bit more value from your blue. And then now what? You're still Olympia, so
you don't need the sideboard slots, Pankaj. But you don't need the sideboard slots because your fatigue main deck is just the same, except for your arcane barrier things that you play on the sideboard. Because your Axe Olympia fatigue deck is just going to be the same. I mean, that is literally what this deck is set up as now. It's just like this has got to be the default fatigue warrior deck now, Axe deck. It ain't Fang, unfortunately for Gregor Kowalski.
Yeah.
I mean.
Sure.
The challenge is what's the payoff for the gold, right? Like, to your point, yes, you've got Visit the Golden Anvil to this defensive spike at some point in the game, but what's the offensive payoff? And Olympia just doesn't have that for gold. So maybe there's more to come, right? Maybe there's more to come. I think what's interesting is this is potentially a step in a direction for Olympia, and then further down the road, if they want to lean into potential, like we know at some point I guess no, we don't, because we always thought we were getting a merchant set, but actually we got the High Seas, which is the gold focus set. So I don't know what gold looks like in the future. Obviously, we've had a big set with it being a focus. We obviously had it in heavy hitters as well. When will we see it next? Will we just see supplemental payoffs for gold for Olympia potentially? Many, many questions. I think for now, what does it do? It introduces potentially another interesting, very defensive avenue for a deck. Is that good? Don't know. But I'm sure people will explore it and we will see.
Talking about this, I just realized I have a rules question.
Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I was just going to say, what if you play a mutiny against Olympia? Can you steal one of these pieces because they count as gold? And I just looked up what mutiny said. Now, mutiny, so it does check whether the opponent controls more gold than you. So Olympia will most of the time be controlling more gold than you, but the steal only steals a gold token.
Yeah,
specifically.
They've already thought of this.
You can't steal this.
Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Just want to make sure. I was like, imagine you just steal all of Olympia's equipment if you're a pirate. That'd be really funny. I long for the day where Olympia is strong enough that everyone is packing their mutinies, or every pirate is packing their mutinies to try and come over to try and
how thematic.
But we're quite far from that for sure. I'm not sure if this fixes it. Should we move on and talk about a brood card, Hayden?
Yeah, let's talk about potentially trying to fix things, and I can talk through this one. This next one is Alpha Instinct. We have this is I have a story for you. So I'm at the Calling Auckland, and I'm in between rounds, and Brian Gottlieb has just arrived. Mr. Brian Gottlieb, he's come off a long flight from the US, from some cons in the US, and he comes to say hello. Great to see him. And Carol is there, one of the developers, OG of Flesh and Blood, Session Blood himself. Carol is there and kind of chatting, and then all of a sudden someone's like, did you see? They announced the Rhinar Armory Deck and a blue Rhinar 6. And like I can see the light in Carol's eyes, because Carol, I believe, was like the lead designer on the Rhinar Armory Deck. He has a Rhinar stand from back in the day. It was like his favorite hero when he went to work for LSS. And yeah, like Alpha Instinct. And I was like, oh. And then he's like, what do you think after I say it? And I'm like, I mean, this will definitely get me back to testing some Rhinar, and I will definitely bang my head against a brick wall for at least 2 weeks trying to work out Rhinar again before I probably, as I always do, inevitably put it down, get sad and realize that I've wasted 2 weeks with Rhinar and I'm not going to be able to play Rhinar for X event that I'm sort of looking to test for. So that was fun. But actually, Alpha Instinct, brute action attack at Majestic is blue. It has 0 defensive value. So it does have a defensive value, but the value is 0. Attacks for 6 and costs 3. So Rhinar specialization, and says when this is discarded to beat chest specifically, create a might token. So everyone's been asking, got that blue 6, give me that blue 6, can be whatever you want it to be. Well, it doesn't defend, and it's a Rhinar specialization, and it does cost 3, so it is playable, right? You can just play this as a 2-card 6, which is cool, I think, and is going to be relevant sometimes. And it does give you extra value off beat chest, which I do think we were needing, a way to get extra value off beat chest to make beat chest better. I'm really interested to see what else is in the Rhinar Armory deck, because I think we are potentially going to get a card or two that work well with this, or another beat chest effect. And I actually genuinely, Pankaj, are getting a little bit excited. I'm not getting my hopes up too high, but I'm getting a little bit excited about Rhinar.
Yeah, I think this card is a solid upgrade. So, like, basically, when you discard this, you're KO for the turn, basically. Like, you made your mind when you discard 6. But I guess it's specifically to beat chest, though, which is also an important distinction. But I think overall, just, another blue 6. This feels like a nice way of doing a little bit of a power drip, especially for a hero like Rhinar, where I feel like if you push him too far, it is super unfun.
Oh, Intimidate is just
experience
too,
on the other side. Exactly. Intimidate literally says, hey, we are removing interaction. So I like that they're sort of giving him some extra power, because I think he does need it, but sort of in this sort of slow drip way. That being said, we haven't seen the rest of the Armory deck, so maybe they've actually fully jacked him. I don't know. But if this is a sort of level of upgrades that he's getting, that's a nice little slow drip. And then he can sort of actually be in the spot that I think a lot of people think he is, where when the meta slows down a little too much and Rhinar can come in to save the day. Like, I think people expected Rhinar to be strong in the Florian Geminate days, right? Just a few months ago. Post Enigma LL, people are like, oh yeah, maybe Rhinar beats up the Florian. But he doesn't, because he just doesn't have the power. But I can imagine if Rhinar had a few pieces like this, where his power level is just slightly above, then he can come and be the savior in that sort of meta, without being oppressive in like a regular meta, if you will. A regular paced meta.
So the problem for Rhinar is still going to be, and we'll see if this is addressed, is that you spoke about, could this be the savior, right? But decks just have too much value and you don't have enough power. So all your big damage turns come via Blood Rush Bellows, effectively, and you can leak to finish off with some really cool things like Alpha Rampage plus Barraging Beatdown sort of thing. But the power is, and rightly so because of Intimidate, right, is just not quite good enough. So I think what Rhinar really needs to be good in that meta that you just described is another payoff card, because you just don't have enough. So you spoke about like, everyone thought it was going to be the savior in the Florian meta, etc. But the problem is like the Florian deck's just like, okay, you smack me for 1 turn, I make a bunch of rune chants, I do my thing, and I kill you. And the random player's like, I just didn't have enough damage, or if I didn't draw my 3 Blood Rush Bellows, or I didn't Eugene you, then I'm not able to win. So I think it needs another payoff. I think it could be a beat chest payoff. I think that'd be very cool. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what else is in this Rhinar deck, and if there's one more sort of payoff, I'm fully on board trying to test this for the event. It's interesting. This comes out the week before Worlds, by the way. This Armory deck.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, I guess we've seen it happen before, right? Armory deck coming out a couple of weeks before Worlds. Dash.io, Aurora. It's not Worlds, before a Tier 4 event. But
yeah, the Armory deck came out literally the week before Worlds. IO.
For IO?
Yeah.
Right.
This is November 14th. So this comes out. Actually, what date is Worlds?
Wait.
It's the weekend of Worlds.
Worlds is 16th.
It's the weekend. It's
okay.
the Friday.
So I guess, I want to say, I hope they're probably not expecting this deck to do much of a splash, because it is Rhinar.
I would assume so, yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably what that means. So I guess don't get your hopes up then, Hayden.
Yeah, but maybe they could do something cool at Worlds with it, so I don't know.
All right. Speaking of getting hopes up, though, let's move on to a card that is, I think, really, really
broken.
Strong. This is Light Up the Leaves, which is a 3-cost, comes in red, 3-cost Earth Wizard action that blocks 3. Also, you could have just said Earth Wizard action that blocks 3, and I already would have been like, this is going in the deck. And this is deal 6 arcane damage to any target. Instant, discard this and an Earth card, prevent the next 6 arcane damage target source would deal this turn. This card, okay, I alluded to earlier when you're talking about the news about the Gravy Mirror finals that I've been alluding to this for the past like many weeks. I think Gravy needs a hit. It's out of the question. This isn't a discussion anymore. He should be 1/3 of the way to LL in like 3 months or something. If they hit Gravy, and they might even hit Slippy, Verdance probably also needs a hit.
100%.
Like she just does. Okay, she's very strong right now, and she's getting Light the Leaves, which is incredibly powerful. So yeah, just gonna get out of the way before we discuss Light the Leaves. Incredible. I mean, Earth with an Earth non-attack, block 3, so makes your chest a lot better, makes your decompose a lot faster, deals 6 arcane damage to any target. A big thing that this does is that it sort of gives her the Icelander problem, where opponents can't like. It feels like there's no correct answer for what arcane barrier they should bring into you, because a lot of it now it feels like you are now getting closer to like a 50-50 split of arcane to physical. You're still gonna have Tillings and Fellings and Plows, but you also have Light Leaves and Burn Bears plus Verdance Pings. So what's the correct arcane amount to bring into you? Because you have tall arcane in the form of Light the Leaves and Burn Bear. Then you also have like tall physicals. You kind of might want some armor. That is a very big problem. Also, this instant part of it, you can actually just do this on turn 0. Suppose your opponent, I don't know, uses the action point for whatever reason. Or say you are going first or something. You didn't have a Fruits of the Forest to discard or whatever. You can just discard this and another Earth card and already get your graveyard train going. So it even has like that aspect of it. The arcane damage prevention, yeah, whatever. Maybe in the mirror it comes up against Kano or whatever. Like that's not so much important. That's not too important, but the fact that you can discard this another Earth card, get the train going, it's another tall arcane spell, basically means your reach is now always 9. Whereas previously it was like, oh, you've seen 3 Burn Bears already, or you can sort of be like, hope you can sort of take a risk the opponent doesn't have the 6 arcane now in their hand for the Stormstrider's kill, but now there's 6 pieces of it in the deck, so it's just like straight up doubled, so the reach is often going to be 9, and also there's just going to be turns of the game where they just send this at you and it's effectively true damage, right? Because and most going to have 3 arcane barrier most of the time, so you're always taking 3 from this. This is very, very strong, I think.
Yeah, I think this card's broken. I think there's a reason. I thought they were never going to do this. I was like, okay, I thought they would at some point print a red Earth non-attack action. I didn't think it would be Burn Bear, though, which is just insane. Burn Bear was already such a massive upgrade for Verdance. And I think the other thing this does, I agree with everything you said. This card's ridiculous. Does all the things, it powers this hero up. I already thought, heading into the start of National Season that Verdance was the best deck. Obviously, then Gravy came along, things changed. I think, if Gravy was hit and Slippy wasn't hit, for instance, I think Verdance is the best deck in the format. I don't think it's Slippy at that point. I think this card is that good. Also, the other thing that this does as well is allows you to. So first of all, there's many reasons why this allows you to do this, which I'll explain each of them. But one of the most powerful cards that you have access to as Verdance is Channel the Millennium Tree. The problem with Channel the Millennium Tree recently is that you've just been in a better position to play a value game. Caleb Martin showed that at US Nationals, right? You're better off just playing the Tillings and playing this value game, right? But now you go back to your point to this you can go back to this more arcane hybrid split, and all of a sudden now it's like, well, if I channel the Millennium Tree, I have the potential of an additional, 18 arcane damage on top of my 6 of these spells, and suddenly coming in for 9 arcane damage is very, very difficult to deal with for decks that maybe want to fatigue me, for instance, or want to, stay out of reach. When I'm just like, well, here's you presented AB3 or AB2. Here's 6 to 7 unpreventable arcane damage coming over the top with Channel Millennium Tree. Plus, you naturally have more arcane. That was the problem before, is you didn't have enough arcane spells to warrant playing Channel Millennium Tree. It would have too many bricks. Now you can get away from that, but also you get this red Earth card that you can actually pitch to the Channel Millennium Tree to keep it around for longer, because one of the challenges also often is that, you need to pitch 2 cards because you want to keep it around for another turn, or maybe you want to activate your staff or whatever it might be. So, this is insane, honestly. I'm surprised they printed it, but also cool because I like Verdance. I am now interested in what gets printed alongside this for potential other heroes, what the meta shakes out like. But yeah, I think this is cool. I'm not annoyed about it as much as I think it's really good.
Mm-hmm. I was talking to Marjan about this, obviously, because we've been talking about Verdance ever since she came out. And he brought up this point where earlier on, post Rosetta release, where we'd be brewing Verdance, and we both were just feeling like the deck is missing stuff. It's just missing some pieces, and it was like she needs we were talking about it back then. We're like, she just needs like 2 to 3 more pieces, and then she'll be like very good. And now it feels like she has those pieces. Now it feels like she firmly has those pieces, and she's very good. So yeah, I think to the point of like, if Gravy gets hit and Slippy doesn't get hit, I'm just like, I don't know, maybe Syndra. I mean, Syndra is probably still like a sort of rough matchup. I just wonder whether she might end up in like the similar spot where Gravy is right now, where any slow deck just loses to you because you're a wizard, like you can just combo kill them, and then you still have game into anything that's fast. Where it's like, yeah, Syndra could be a rough matchup, but it's not like worse than 40, like even right now, and it could actually just get higher with the release of this card. So then it becomes like, what's your actually bad matchup? Prism-ish, but I mean, Burn Bear, and then you have like 7s as well.
It's still bad. Like, it's still bad for you, but.
Yeah, but it does feel like she might need something hit as well, or she ends up being in that same spot where it's like slow decks can't play into you, and you still are allowed to play the game into fast decks. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I've got to commend Alexis as well. I think, when Verdance came out, I think it was better than people realized, but it wasn't particularly good. And I think, they've done some things. I think this is a good example of using supplemental slots in the right way to get a hero to where they would like to see it as a potential player in the meta. Look, maybe Light Up the Leaves is pushing that dial quite far, but, you look at the Blue Earth card printed recently, obviously Ring of Roses, these things. I think it is a super interesting way that they've done this, and I do just want to point this out as a way to really effectively use supplemental slots, because we've spoken about Take Out the Bait and things like that. I think the Kassai one that we spoke about as well is also a really interesting and cool way to use supplemental slots. So I'm seeing the impact of these supplemental slots I think personally in a way that appeases me more in terms of the interaction they have in the future, for these particular heroes, as opposed to maybe some of the use of supplemental slots we've seen previously. Look, to be honest, the 4 gold equipment, I don't know about that, but These two we've spoken about today, I think, with Light Up the Leaves and what's the Kassai one called? It is called Blood Follows Blade.
Blood Follows Blade.
Cool.
Yep.
Into it. I'm very into it.
Yeah, it does feel like if you look back and see the past few supplemental slots, it does feel like there has been like a bit of a mix. Some supplemental slot cards are really, really good, but I think some of the previous Brute ones in particular have been like pretty bad, right? It's just been like, I don't remember what they were called, but they're not so good. But there's some really good ones. Like this one, Kassai is this one, but Kassai also got Unsheathed. I forgot, like 1 or 2 sets ago, which is also incredibly strong as a supplemental set. So yeah, I'm definitely with you on that, where it does feel like they are able to do the power drip for the heroes, which is the goal, the vision for the supplemental slot, and that's kind of happening. Yeah.
Indeed.
Also, yeah, coming back to Light Up the Leaves, I feel like she's going to feel a little bit more like a wizard now, and I'm really hyped for that. And I think I might actually finally pick up my Verdance cards, which
you're very excited, I can tell.
Have. Yes.
Right. That is all the preview talk for this week. We'll obviously have more as we get closer to Super Slam and we see more cards from that set as well. But obviously there's some Armory decks coming up now that we know about as well. With that said though, Pankaj, we have a gold foil from my Calling Top 8 2 weekends ago to open up. Should we do it? Close out the pod on this.
Let's do it. Show us what you got.
So I did just quickly look as well, because last week on the pod we said, what might I open? Shout out what you think. What would you like to see me open? There were some people cursing me, I'll tell you what. But there was also some great call-outs for the pod. What was one of my favorite? Someone said EA Sarong, which was just an absolute curse. Please don't do that to me. But
whoa! Marlon will be playable one day.
Sure. Gold Tickler Foundry Heart, yeah, love it. Gold Foil Summit was interesting. What is that? I don't think you can open that.
Wait, that's not legendary, right?
Yeah. I don't think you can open that, unfortunately.
No, I think Gold Foil Scabs for you would be very apt, particularly because you're gonna be maining Rhinar from now on after the Armory deck.
Exactly. Also, I think
Gold Foil Scabs.
Hitting a Welcome to Wraith in the legendary at this point that's like mythical. It's very hard to do. Obviously, as they release more gold foils and the circulation of the gold foils, you're more likely to open one from the newer sets. But anyway, let's get into it. You can see, obviously, it's still fully sealed team. If you're a viewer, you can see this on YouTube. If you're an audio listener, then Pankaj's reaction will tell you everything you need to know, and then he will tell you exactly what it is that I've opened. I'm going to open it facing the camera, Pankaj, so you're going to be the first, person to see it.
I feel there's so much pressure on me right now.
Yeah. Make sure I get this right. Oh no! Break that seal open as you can.
Also, don't want to sound too disappointed in case it isn't a great one, because don't you feel bad? Wait, I think if you open it this way, isn't it the back of the card?
Nope. This is right.
Oh,
this is right.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool.
I've opened my fair share of gold foils. Don't worry, Pankaj. All right.
All right.
Here we go.
All right, let's go.
Oh.
Okay.
What is that?
All right. It's Soulborn Resolve. It's the Bolton one, right?
Yep. That is what it is.
All right.
So this is
Cool.
great. Yeah, that is what I guess that is what it is. I actually don't really know what this card is. Hence, I didn't know the name of it. So thanks for shouting out the name there.
Yeah, for sure. So I saw the art and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's. I was like confused at first. Is it that one or Arcanine Fortress? And I was like, no, that's the Light Warrior chess piece. Yep.
Yeah.
Congrats.
It's probably not quite what I was looking for. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, for sure.
But there you go. Gold foil legendary.
There's some Bolton stands out there. You could maybe trade for it from someone who's really hardcore Bolton fan. You know,
Yeah,
get Ellie Bird or something.
Hit me up if you're after this team.
Yeah, Ellie Bird or Josh Lau. Okay, whoops. That was slightly anticlimactic.
Yeah. Hey, look, they can't all be winners, right? They can't all be winners. So we'll make sure one of our next gold foils is an absolute banger. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Well,
we are a long way from scabs, I think, for that one.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That might be in the lower.
I just had to look it up. I had to look it up because I was like, wait, this is legendary? I thought it was like a majestic. Because I know he got a bunch of stuff from the Armory Deck, right? A whole bunch of like equipment slots from the Armory Deck. And I was like, wasn't this that one? No, it wasn't. The Armory Deck must have been something else then.
It's Dusted Dawn legendary. Yeah, it was one of the so we had the light and the obviously Dusted Dawn light shadow set. You had the two legendaries, and this is the Light Warrior chest equipment. So
rip. Cool. Sounds good.
That's all right. Hey, that's okay. I still top editor calling. Still got a bit of cash in my pocket. Still got a gold foil legendary. So definitely PTI. Can't be upset about that. Pankaj.
For sure.
Anyway, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Arsenal Pass. Lots of conversation about Light Up the Leaves, about taking particular pieces of bait, all these, making blood follow with the blade, all these different things. Pankaj just...
And real quick, for those of you that fast forwarded to just see the gold foil opening, go back and listen to the rest of the episode.
Oh, it's way better. The rest of the episode is way better than the gold foil opening. You could see my face. Yeah. Pankaj's reaction was, oh, and my face is, what is that card? That can't be good. Anyway, that was episode 227 of Arsenal Pass. Until the next episode, we will see you next week.